This is what it feels like.
Good morning and thanks so much for staying there on TV3 and also listening to us on 92.73 FM. My name is Bright and welcome to the Saturday edition of New Day. And this is when we take you back into the week and look at the issues that have made the headlines. We're streaming live on TV3network.com, and as usual, we're doing 3 hours today, starting from now till 10 o'clock, the last hour only on radio. Very soon I'll tell you who my guests are, but let's take a look at the issues that will dominate our conversation this morning. The Electoral Commission has suspended the committee, the steering committee that was put in place, the 18-member steering committee. In fact, an IPAC meeting yesterday took that decision with the Electoral Commission. Now, there was a lot of public debate on this particular issue because some persons were mentioned to have some biases, political biases, and so they should be taken off. Mr. Max Ahin was taken off, and others were told had some challenges because they were deemed to be members or card-bearing members of some political parties. But the question we're asking is if the Electoral Commission should have allowed this particular issue to get to this point, particularly when others have argued that they could have used the inter-party advisory committee to deal with this particular issue of a steering committee. My guest will make some input and tell us exactly what the opinions are. Now, let's turn our attention to the accident that has claimed so many lives. Over 70 people have lost their lives. Now, the concerns are the issue of consumables at certain health facilities across the country. Government is expanding health infrastructure, but exactly how is it trickling down? We're told of ambulances that are inadequate and the fact that certain consumables are not there to be used. Now, what about these facilities relying on their internally generated funds to procure some of these things? What are these administrators of these facilities doing to support what government is doing? We'll take a look at that, and then we'll get my panelists to make some input. Then we're asking, what is wrong with the pastor preaching and asking the congregation to raise their bar of expectation? Now, did he insult anybody? Some concerns have been raised that he says the state should get out of everything. The others are thinking that why should the state get out of everything? Can the state stay out of providing schools? Can the state stay out of providing health facilities? Others have said that no. Of course, these are things that the state should stay and do to its citizens. But he is talking about the fact that the state seems to have monopolized businesses. Exactly what is he talking about? I'll get my guests to make comments on this. And we'll delve deep, and particularly we'll get a chance to allow you to be part of the conversation at the latter part of the show when we'll open the phone lines. But stay on our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, News on TV3. You can be part of the conversation. Post your comment there and we'll read them. When I come back, I'll tell you who my guests are, and then we'll begin another weekend conversation. This is New Day on TV3 and 92.73 FM. We're also streaming live on TV3network.com. Welcome. It's a great weekend and stay there. We're coming back in a minute.
This is what it feels like.
And thanks so much for staying there. And of course, I told you earlier that you're watching us on TV3, also listening to us on 92.73 FM, and we're streaming live on TV3network.com. My guests are seated comfortably, and let me quickly tell you who they are. To my left is the Member of Parliament for Nanton and also Deputy Minister Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed. Welcome.
Thank you.
And thanks so much for joining us. And then to my right, another Member of Parliament for Kwapim South, known face, yeah, Obi Amwa. Welcome once again.
Thank you.
This morning I was from a break coming, and really Ghanaians are very serious about their health. The number of people I saw climbing the hills.
Yes, it's
I was
Saturday
very
morning.
excited this morning.
Saturday morning ritual.
I was really,
From the
really
barrier
excited.
to the hills and back.
Yeah. And then to the extreme right is a presidential staffer, Mr. Edward Sari. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure is mine, sir.
Great.
I nearly thought I had presidential candidate.
But that should be.
I'd have melted.
Oh, I see. All right. And in just a couple of minutes, we will be expecting Ms. Ayiko to join the panel, and then we will be set. Thanks so much for staying there with us, and you're listening 92.73 FM. We're streaming live on tv3network.com, and also we are on TV3 from now till 10. I told you earlier the last hour of the show is on radio 92.73 FM. Thanks so much for staying. Let's jump into our conversation this morning. We're starting with what happened yesterday, the suspension of the Election Steering Committee by the Electoral Commission and the Inter-Party Advisory Committee. We were told yesterday, eventually after that meeting, it's been suspended whilst the EC goes back to the table and take a look at how to reorganize and come back. But let's start with the issue of the public debate on what might have gone wrong. Let me begin with the Member of Parliament for Nantong. The public discourse about the steering committee and the fact that the EC had put in certain names that people were not excited about because, according to them, they seem to have political biases. How did you see that public discourse? Was it healthy?
Well, good morning, and good morning to your cherished viewers, particularly the people of Nantong constituency. And thanks for having me. I think it's healthy as long as it deepens our democracy. It's
in our build-up to 2016.
Exactly. It's healthy as long as it takes away the suspicion, if you like, real or unreal. I think it's healthy as long as it also helps to ensure that we have smooth, peaceful, transparent elections come 2016, considering the fact that the stakes are very high, and considering the fact that we wouldn't want anything to mar the beauty of our democracy, which we have all collectively helped to nurture and continue to grow since 1992. So I think that in that vein, I see it to be something that is healthy. And more so when people indeed have expressed their opinions publicly and openly, and to the extent that the Electoral Commission would see reason in what people are doing and think that, look, we need to suspend this and see how best we can come out with something that will be appealing to everybody. But the question I ask is that if people are raising questions about certain people because they claim they are NDC members,
The card-bearing members.
good. A lot of them, and they have, in fact, almost all of them have actually denied, that they don't bear any card of any political party. Now the question then is this suggestive that the other people they haven't raised questions about are members of MPP or other opposition parties? I think it's a very dangerous development that we need to understand. And sometimes all of us, we all go and vote. The Electoral Commission and the Commissioner herself would vote come November 2016. Everybody. Now, if you want to begin tagging this person, if there is justifiable reasons, i.e. the example of a person who had a card or hold a political position, and you raise questions about that, I think it's justified. But you can't just look at me and assume that I should belong to NPP or NDC, or because I have some relations who belong to NPP or NDC, and therefore I belong to either NDC or NPP. I think that's a very dangerous development. Now, if other people are appointed and other political parties come out and say, no, we think that this person has an affiliation with NPP, because I think he has, or because I know him to be in relations with people who are in MPP, conclusively, such a person ought not be there. Then we would never have such an interim, if you like, working committee. Some have also raised questions about whether it was even legal, and as to whether the Electoral Commission had the powers to do what the Electoral Commissioner or the Commission did.
Right.
Some have even raised questions as to the mandate of the Electoral, and I think that these are legitimate questions if indeed people are raising them. Whatever the case is, the Electoral Commission is given a mandate to ensure that elections are conducted. And whatever they will do, as long as it is not illegal, whatever they will do that will ensure that we have smooth, fair, and transparent elections, I don't have any problem at all with that. So I don't have any problem with people who express their convictions on these issues publicly. I don't have any problem with concerns that are being raised. My only worry is that if we begin questioning people because they are appointed to do particular thing A, B, C, D at any point in time, and we don't have any reason or justifiable reason or any evidence to suggest that those people belong to political party A or B, but because we look at the person's nose and you think that this nose seems to be a nose that belongs to NDC or NPP or CPP, I think that will be
your own party is said to have said that Mr. Ahin, for instance, should not have accepted that position.
That is why I said that if you raise questions about a card bearing on someone who holds a position in a political party, example, the name you have just mentioned,
right,
it's justified. I don't have any problem at all with that. Because there are some people who are there that many people are, if you go through social media, and I don't want to mention because that would be extremely irresponsible, a picture is trending on social media, and people are saying this person belongs to NPP. A picture is trending. I wouldn't want to make that comment on this program because I have no evidence to suggest that the person belongs to NPP. But those who also know him, and that is why I'm saying that in all, if we want to begin questioning that this person belongs to NDC and therefore he must be out, or this person belongs to MPP and therefore he must be out, then we wouldn't have anybody, because every single person will either go and vote political party A or B. And because I know someone may, or probably he might have made a statement somewhere, except the person who holds an executive position in a political party, absolutely justified. And that is why the NDC says that in the first place, he shouldn't have even accepted, if you like, to be appointed, you know, for that particular responsibility. But the other people who have come out to say, look, I don't bear any NDC card and know any political party. I don't have any card of any political party. And if anybody has any evidence provided, mind you, the Electoral Commissioner has appointment. The kind of statements that were made, particularly by the NPP, particularly
even
press
now,
conferences
some
were
groups seem to doubt her neutrality.
Maybe we should appoint Nana-Addo as the Electoral Commissioner, and maybe probably that would appease people. I think we need to be very careful. There was a time even they put a poster, created something that this woman contested, you know, as a parliamentary candidate for NDC.
She did not?
She never did. And I'm saying that these things have been trending. Anybody who is appointed in this country as the Electoral Commissioner, people would have questions. Afarijan, at a point in time, people considered Afarijan to be an NDC man. At a point in time, people considered him to be an MPP man. And I think that we need to be very, very careful. And it was amazing. I sat here on the program, and I remember people were even saying that we should learn from Nigeria. And I made a statement here. You have an Electoral Commission that indeed has done so much well. And the Electoral Commission has conducted elections for not less than 4 or 5 times. And indeed, the Electoral Commission in Ghana is touted as one of the best electoral commissions you can think of in sub-Saharan Africa, because they have consistently, the extent to which other nations are seeking their expertise and their experience in their elections. I think we need to be very, very careful. In as much as I don't have any problem with anybody who raises legitimate concerns about the appointment of anybody in this process, but I'm saying we need to be very, very careful that if people begin to question, this person belongs to this party, this person belongs to this party, and therefore I don't think that he needs to be doing A, B, C, D, because I suspect he belongs to NDC, or I suspect he belongs to MPP. I really don't think that argues well for our young democracy that in this growing.
Let me pick your brains on also the argument that the committee itself isn't necessary, and that IPAC is there. The EC could have used IPAC to do whatever job this steering committee would be asked to do.
That is why I stated earlier that some have even raised questions as to whether indeed it was legal for the Electoral Commission to do that. Some have questioned why the Electoral Commission didn't seek, if like, more or less the views of all those political parties in IPAC. These are questions that must be answered by the Electoral Commission. And I think that if people raise those concerns, maybe probably the Electoral Commission would have avoided, all this alabalu if they had done that.
Right.
Because you have IPAC, and IPAC, which has the responsibility more or less to some extent, helping to build consensus on some of those decisions as far as the conduct of our elections are concerned. Maybe probably that could have avoided some of these problems that we have. But like I said, yes, people can raise questions. Yet people can demand that things ought to be done rightly. But we need to be very careful. If I have reasons to believe that you belong to NPP, and therefore you ought not be there because I think you will be biased, that is justified. But I can't just say that the way I look at you or which part of the country you are coming from, and therefore if you are coming from this part of this country, you should be a member of NPP or you should be a member of NDC. I really don't think that argues well for the beauty of our democracy.
I'm grateful for your very initial comments. Let me quickly go to Member of Parliament for Kwiapem South, Mr. Obiamwa. The argument is that we should simply stay away from tagging people based on the fact that they belong to one color or the other.
Well, thank you, Bright. Good morning to fellow panelists and to yourself and to viewers and listeners on radio. I don't want us to narrow this whole thing to MPP and NDC. The Electoral Commission has a mandate to run elections in this country, among other things like registration of voters. And for years now, the EC has found it fit to involve the political parties in some of its activities. In fact, IPAC has become very useful to the EC, to the extent that there are even various committees which the EC uses to be able to run its affairs. For instance, when the biometric registration started, the EC set up a legal committee and technical committee, which their law mandates them to do, except that they are required to chair any of such committees. So through the legal and technical committees, we're able to go through this whole process of biometric registration and the elections. And as we speak, the EC has just laid before Parliament Constitutional Instrument 91, which is on registration of voters. And this is a product of the parties, in the sense that the legal committee of the EC had 4 party members on that committee: MPP, NDC, PNC, CPP. So EC, along the line, uses committees to be able to carry out its mandate. The challenge is when, out of the blue, we heard that the 18-member committee had been put in place. The number outnumbering even those commissioners of the EC. And what we read in the media was they were to assist in planning, they were to look at logistics, they were to ensure free and fair elections, etc., etc. And some of us were a bit surprised. Surprised in the sense that if we have a program of activities, every month there's supposed to be IPAC meeting, and yesterday was part of the schedule. And never had it come up that the EC was planning to set up such a committee. For us to even ask about the mandate and the terms of reference and the membership and then how they were going to even carry out their duties. I'm saying that it was a surprise because even for major issues and critical ones which are supposed to be within the domain of the EC, they bring them to the table for us to discuss. Those ones which they don't bring, they end up having problems and they have to come back. Typical example is when they announced the whole world that under Regulation 9 of CI 72, they can carry out continuous registration. And even purported to have started that process. When the parties came in and drew their attention to certain problems we were going to face, they quickly came back. We asked them to bring guidelines, and as we speak, we are still discussing the guidelines for continuous registration.
Obiama, give me just a minute. Let me introduce my fourth guest. He's just joined us, Mr. Aikoyotu of the NPP. Ni, good morning.
Morning.
And I hope you're doing great. And your people are fine. Your people of Teshino well.
No water in the on the
I see.
Spinters Road.
I see.
Very surprisingly, with a desalination plant I don't know whether the sea is also dried up.
All right. I'm sure we'll see how to deal with that one later on. Welcome once again.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, sorry for the cutting in there. Go ahead, you can.
So I'm saying that yesterday at IPAC, I was at IPAC yesterday representing my party. All the parties made it clear that this is one area that the EC probably could have consulted the parties for us to also advise. For instance, when it comes to membership, you can look at the example of the Media Commission. When the Media Commission was set up, it was open to anybody or everybody. Once your name was brought from any institution, if it's Bar Association, GJA, all those institutions, Christian Council, Muslim Association, all those institutions who can send representatives to the Media Commission. By 1996, the Constitution had been amended, Article 166 had been amended, to indicate that if you are a founding member of a party, or the leader of a party, or a member of the National Executive, or other position, you cannot be a member of the Media Commission.
Right.
So that if EC even in deciding to set up the steering committee, had even had a look at this, which we could have advised if they had probably brought it to even IPAC. They could have even specified that, please, when you are nominating persons to serve on this body, make sure that such persons don't belong to the criteria that has been set. To that extent, this issue about Dr. Ahin don't have even come in, because I don't know whether he's still holding that position, but he served at a very high level, at the party level, and probably he will not even have qualified to be a member of the steering committee. It's just one example of how the EC could have consulted the parties. It's not obligatory for them to consult the parties, but if they had, some of these things would have come up. And I'm saying that for various issues which we have the mandate without even needing to consult us, we have brought them back to the table, and we have made very useful suggestions as to how things could be run. So it's very unfortunate that they had to go this way, and then yesterday they had to apologize for getting that far without involving us.
Okay, let me ask you this. What is the fear about getting people who serve in high positions in political parties onto certain committee? And is this fear really genuine?
Well, it's not about fear. If it's a fear, the Constitution has provided for it. Why is the Constitution saying that for a certain commission, if you're a founding member or leader of a party, you should not serve on that commission? We, as much as possible, we want to at least show a semblance of neutrality in some of the things that we do. I always say that as I sit here, if you say I should head the Electoral Commission, I can head the Electoral Commission. But who will appoint me to head the Electoral Commission? Because of my bias, my perceived bias. I could be fair if I'm chairman of EC, but from my background, the other person should be able to trust me and say that even though this person is sincere, this person has integrity, this person has the knowledge to be able to run this institution, because of his antecedent, it will be difficult for the rest of us to trust him. And any step that you take, people may read into it.
So even if the systems are there, as long as you have this color, you can't be in that position.
Not in every position, but you're saying that there's a reason why the EC is supposed to be independent. There's a reason. Otherwise, then you could pick anybody to go and serve on the EC. If you go to National Service now, those heading National Service, everybody knows their party affiliation. But who has complained? Because if yours is to assist in posting graduates and students to go and serve at various stations, how biased can you be, and how is it going to affect the system? But if yours is to run elections in this country, carry out registration, carry out education, and run elections in this country, then everybody should have the impression that you do a fair job, not because of only your sincerity and integrity, but you are not seen to be biased towards one group or the other. And I always say that Ghana is not MPP and DC. Ghana doesn't have only two parties. And in any case, there are people who could even be bothered about parties. But they are citizens, and they should exercise their rights as they go on. So sometimes we shouldn't reduce this whole argument to MPP and DC, MPP and DC. I always say it. That some people, the only thing they do is carry out their duties, and when it's election time, they go and vote and go on with their business. It's those who are the active players that you always hear and that even the active players, it doesn't mean that it's only it's a two-party system. So it's not about fear. It's about giving it that semblance of neutrality in every way, and building consensus. When you come to IPAC meeting, by and large, there's consensus. People share ideas, people bring out ideas, and then at the end of the day, people give in and say that you have a point, or I didn't consider this issue. Thank you that you've brought this point, so we can move on in this direction. And it's been going on very well. Yesterday, all the parties said that EC took a first step. And EC agreed, and they said that they were going back to the drawing board and get back to us. That is the way to move forward. So we shouldn't bring in that factor of fear or apprehension when it comes to these things. What does the law say? If they're going about it this way, what are the implications? For instance, the membership. You want to bring in NCC, you want to bring in SHAG, you want to bring in the security services. Fine. What is the extent of their mandate? We have a constitutional body, NCC. They are supposed to carry out civic education. Do you need them on your steering committee before they carry out the civic education? Or do you need them on your committee before you liaise with them on things that you want them to do when it comes to elections? Those are issues that we need to address. When it comes to security, should the security people come under another body? Or should they do their own thing? And what will be the implications if at steering committee meeting, the security people say that this is the way we should go? Are you bound by what the security people will be saying? Because you have brought them in, and they will tell you security will supersede everything.
They'll give advice.
Yeah, they give advice.
EC
Fine.
would have
But
to.
the security system, people have their own system as to how to even police these elections and provide all the security. So the more you explain to us, the more we can move forward. But if out of the blue, I just read on the net that you have set up a committee and they're supposed to do this, the average person will ask, and I will not have any answer for him. More so, my party people who sent me there, they will ask, and if I don't have any answer for them, they start speculating and start making statements which will then poison the whole atmosphere. Because the people that they sent to the ECA as part of IPAC should be able to bring them back information as to the consensus and the decisions we've arrived at IPAC. But if I'm not in the picture, if I don't know, and yesterday I drew the attention to another issue which created a lot of problems for us: manual verification. They raised the issue of manual verification at IPAC meeting, and what we said was that bring the modalities, tell us how you're going to carry this out so that it will not conflict with the regulations, and then people too will be comfortable that apart from the no verification, no vote, there's a window for manual verification. That very day they issued a statement that the parties have agreed to manual verification. That very day.
Okay.
So yesterday when I raised it, they had to apologize and said that no, we didn't even know that we had issued a statement. I said, that's your director of public affairs sitting there. He issued a statement. And how do you expect that parties will send it to IPAC? We don't even go back to them to tell them that this is what was raised. What's the way forward? They issue a statement that, oh, parties have agreed. And yesterday they had to admit that they shouldn't have gone that way. So, by and large, sometimes the communication is very critical. Yeah. And when it comes to politics, people are passionate. It's good that they send leaders to represent them. But the leaders should be able to go back to them and say that this is what is being proposed.
Okay.
Not just out of the blue, then you take decisions, and then and what is even worrying is that this steering committee business is not the most critical thing.
Quickly wrap up for me. Let me go to Mr.
I need to bring this in because this
I got you more chance.
It's not the most critical thing. Yesterday, the EC told us that they cannot even meet the deadline for the registration of voters stated for March. They said that because they sent the CI to Parliament, they have to wait for the CI to come into force. But the most critical thing, which they didn't want to address so much, is the fact that they don't even have the funding to carry out the registration. These are some of the issues that we should be talking about.
That's what you were saying, or the EC agreed that it doesn't have the funding?
They didn't deny it when I raised it. That I know for the fact that the funds which should be released to you for you to do the registration haven't come in yet. So it's not only about entering into force of the CI, because the CI by 18th or 20th March, the CI would have matured. So after the entry into force of the CI, we were slating the registration for 21st March. You could postpone it for a week or two. But you are saying that you may end up April 28th in starting the whole registration exercise. These are some of the issues we should be dwelling on more than this steering committee thing.
All right.
And it's self-inflicted.
Okay. Mr. Obiama, I'm grateful for your submission. Let me go to Mr. Duasari. You can tie in your submission with the arguments raised by people that some of these things suggest, or like Ms. Obiama said, a false step from the Electoral Commission suggests its unpreparedness towards 20 November.
Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak with your viewers and listeners, I should say.
Right.
Good morning to my colleague panelists. Personally, I think this particular steering committee idea, personally, it doesn't sit well with me, because as Obi, I want to agree with portions of what he said. What is the? I've put down a few questions. In the first place, what is the legal basis for the setting up of such a committee? Number two, what will be their roles and responsibilities? 3, how will their activities be funded? And whatever remunerations will go to the 18-member committee. Again, you want to find out what consultations went into the determining of the bodies, the identifiable groups that make up the body. What consultations went into that? And if I may add, what is the what did I put here? Like, of course, I've said that the composition. What exactly did they want to put together? What is the at the end of the day, when you have 18 members, what is their makeup?
Right.
Okay, in the minds of the players, in this case the political parties, and the general populace at large. So honestly, unfortunately, this whole thing was sprung up on us somehow. So one wondered, did I miss something? And thankfully, some of us have been around for a while, and we monitor radio, we monitor TV programs, we read newspapers, and I was wondering how we could miss such a huge, decision such as this. Then it was like, it was inaugurated only last week or so. And honestly, unfortunately, again, the controversy that even brought it to the fore had to do with a membership of a particular person who is considered a member of the NDC. So people called and started asking, what do you know about this? I said, I know next to nothing. So somehow, I agree with the consensus that the IPAC reached on this particular subject yesterday.
So perhaps Mr. Peter McMenu's argument that the NDC did this with the EC isn't right from what you're saying.
No, he didn't say that. He never said that. Right.
He didn't say that the NDC colluded with the EC to set up the committee.
If you're quoting Peter McMenu, then he's never said that.
I heard him.
Maybe a brief
I heard him.
But
Mr. Peter McMenu said that yesterday on our platform that the NDC colluded with the EC to come up with this steering committee idea.
Okay.
Well,
maybe I should say I haven't heard it.
All right.
Yeah. Thankfully, the NDC, I think 2 days ago, the Deputy General Secretary came out to. He also said they didn't have any formal information on that particular subject. They don't even know how Mr. Ahin got to be on that steering committee. But of course, it was later, it came out later that he came to represent the National Service Secretariat he came as a representative from that place because I think he's a deputy director also. And then subsequently he resigned from it, from being a member of the committee. So this whole controversy could have been avoided, I think, if the EC had taken steps to, well, as has been said, to do as much consultations, especially with the key players, knowing very well the controversies that in the last few weeks have surrounded a number of issues that have to do with them. You know, and again, maybe if I may chip in my little advice to the EC boss herself, it would be good to keep quiet a little bit. I think his media friendliness is also moving beyond a certain bounds. So it's weakening a lot of things for her. I think some of these positions usually is cut for people who speak very little and let their actions speak for them. And if possible, their spokespersons should be the ones doing the talking, because once people build their confidence in the kind of work she's doing, then whatever her voice on any particular issue will carry the weight that it ought to carry. But then if people begin to punch holes in every activity of hers and she loses that let me use this, the aura surrounding that position, then it calls for some kind of introspection, and I'll give her this free advice.
Maybe I'm sure we'll disagree, because he is talking about the fact that communication perhaps is not being done properly, perhaps. Maybe he won't agree with what you're saying.
I'm not sure communication has to do with
public pronouncement.
Exactly. I think they have a wing that can deal properly with communication. I think this whole thing, the underlining factor has to do with the consultation aspects that didn't seem to have taken root in this whole decision. That is where the problem is for us in the NDC, as well as the other parties, MPP and others who have all expressed similar sentiments. Because I think that NDC, we will win this election. No two ways about that. I have said it elsewhere. But we also don't want our victory to be tainted with suspicions of,
Another court.
So we wish that the terrain will be well marked for very clean, credible, fair elections, so that nobody will have the cause to go and seek any legal whatever, or those who will call the whole thing into some kind of questioning and all of that. So I think by and large, this should be one of the warning signs to the EC that, look, between now and elections, the temperature is going to rise, and the momentum, they would have to, as much as possible, come in at every given time to calm nerves. So they shouldn't rather appear to be aggravating party or giving rise for people to question whatever motives that they have. It may be very good ones, but if it's not properly communicated and the consensus to even have that whatever they want to do done, it's not properly followed, I don't think Ghanaians will be too happy, or they will take them really serious. I think Charlotte, personally, I'm being a bit hard on her this morning, because I think she's cut for the job. She doesn't look like someone who cannot do the job. But a few of her earlier, or let me say, the very things she started with, the fumbling is becoming a bit too many, and giving rise for people to, question so many things. And I don't want to be part of those who even are asking for her removal and all of those things. It doesn't augur well we want to see the fact that a woman, for the first time in this country, can also supervise elections, and we should all be able to say it went very well, so that whatever place that they've all called themselves, most women have called to be recognized, will also, that recognition will be given to them.
Grateful for your submission there.
I don't know whether we come back to this.
We'll come back to it, but let me quickly pick some thought from Nia Yukurutu, and then I'll come back to you. Ni, welcome once again. So, I'm sure you've also followed these steering committee thing, and did it also come to you as a shock? You didn't know of it, you read about it in the media?
Yeah, I mean, surely this is an unnecessary fifth wheel on the coach. I don't think it's unconstitutional. It has no basis, in law. I've been trying to find out a definition of steering committee. Google says, now, a committee that decides on the priorities or order of business of an organization and manages the general course of its operations. Can you believe that? That you have an independent body charged with a constitutional mandate of organizing elections. Its functions are clearly stated in Article 45, now goes to form a committee to rather tell it what to do. They should manage the day-to-day activities, advise, set the priorities. I mean, it is not on. It is clearly unconstitutional. And I don't think it's a question of suspension. It's a question of scrapping. That thing should not come back. It shouldn't. Look, you have stakeholders, that is the political parties. You are doing this thing for them, and therefore you want to listen to them. You don't want to be seen as being capricious and taking decisions which are over and above everybody's head. The Constitution even talks about transparency. And therefore you have this IPAC where you want to take decisions with them. Somewhere along the line, Afarajan told us IPAC decisions are not binding on him.
They are advisory.
They are purely advisory. In looking at, I think, CI 72, we set up a committee to do that, the MPP. We said they should try and incorporate it into any new CI which they want to lay in Parliament so that it becomes binding. And the Constitution has told you how to work. If you want to make any law come by way of constitutional instruments, place it before Parliament, let the 21 days pass. If there's no problem, it passes. Now, how do you bring a steering committee? I mean, what is their basis? What their mandate? Where do they fit in? And to call it, describe it as a steering committee. So what will the other commissioners be doing? You are only a chairperson. You have other 5 or so, 6 people who help you to do your work. And the laws are there. Apart from the EC Act, you have the constitutional provision. So why this? I don't understand it. Are you making the other commissioners useless? Or you yourself, are you creating the impression that you can't do the work? You need these people to come and advise you, to come and decide what. Oh, no. Please. My position is that this thing should be scrapped. It is unconstitutional. It has no basis in law. It ought not to be there. It's not a question of suspending it. It ought to be scrapped. And I expect that they will not come back. I hope they are listening.
Let's hope the EC will listen to Ibrahim Mutala. Let's quickly a reaction, and then I take a break.
Well, I'm not too sure whether there is something to react. I think that there is some consensus here. But my only point is that I really think that, and I would just make the statement. I don't think that the EC boss herself would have indeed constituted this committee without consulting the other commissioners. I believe that they would have done it together. So I really wouldn't want us to reduce this to that person,
right?
The EC boss.
The EC boss.
Herself. In as much as we all agree that there should have been some consultation, particularly with the major stakeholders in this business. Because why? You are conducting elections for political parties. And if you are conducting elections for political parties, you need to take their views at any point in time. My only concern was the issue of tagging people with regards to whether you belong to political party A or you belong to political party B. And it is not only elections. As a country, we need to move forward. That if people are appointed and we think that those people can do the work, we shouldn't accept that where we have justifiable reasons. A person who has held, a party position before, such a person ought not even have accepted, to be on that board. But I also raise the question that people have asked the legality of even this particular, if you like, committee. And I think we need to look at them in that order. But briefly, I agree that my brother was really being hard on the issue. I don't think she has fumbled. I really don't think so. Maybe probably as part of the democratic process, we are judging the performance of this woman using Afarajan as a standard. That Afarajan could have done things differently. He wasn't a media person. Probably this person is a different person who thinks that it's good to open up.
Or she's not settling in.
Exactly. Not even settling in. I believe that she has what it takes to do the work. I have no doubt at all. But I'm saying that if you use Afarajan as a standard, who indeed did very, very well, if you use him as a standard, we may be judging this woman wrongly. Afarajan could have decided that I don't want to engage the media. This person decides that, look, let me engage the media. And her engagement itself is also helping. There are certain things you ought not listen from other people. She herself comes up. Maybe we need to look at the kind of engagement she would have with the media. But if you begin to use what Farijan did, to judge her, then you say that no, she is doing something extremely different. But I really don't think that she has fumbled, and I really don't think that her engagement with the media is something that wouldn't also be good. Maybe probably she needs to look at the kind of engagement she has. But if the media comes to you, they need an information from you as elected commissioner, and you think that no, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to speak to the media, itself is even another problem. But for her to open up to the media, maybe it's also resulting to some of those things. I think that we need to give her time. Okay. I have no doubt at all. But I agree with everybody that they ought to have consulted, particularly IPAC, that look, we want to do this. We think that these are the benefits. If IPAC had decided that, look, we think there is a need for some committee to look into ABC, I don't think we would have been where we are and wouldn't have been raising these issues.
Well, Obi, quickly.
Well, the issue of consultation, I believe that apart from the external factors, I wonder the extent to which consultations were done even internally, which is very important. I'm saying this because if you look at the top three, they are new people, relatively new people. We've had the unfortunate situation of the exit of Dr. Frejan, David Kanga, and Safu Kantanka. These three key people who were chairman and deputy chair, they were more or less, they had so much experience and institutional memory in running the EC. Somehow, they've hesitated. Now you have Charlotte, Mesopokwa Mankwa, and Amadou Sule. They don't have that kind of experience that these three persons had over the years. So they need to be a bit more cautious and consult, if not only even externally, even within. There are directors of all these sectors in the EC. Director of Training, Director of Elections, Director of ICT. There are a lot of directors, and probably if they broaden the consultation, some of these things will not come out and appear to look like the EC is not ready or the EC gets embarrassed by all these issues. It's becoming too many. I've talked about continuous registration, manual verification, and now this steering committee business. And the more you do these things, the more the average person who will not even take the trouble to go through the law or look at what it really means, come out to say that why this kind of EC is fumbling and this kind of EC may not be able to do the job. The perception sometimes can really hurt you, and they should be careful the public doesn't get that perception that.
All right. I'm grateful, Mr. Obiama, for your submission there. And then, of course, you can also be part of the conversation and go to our social media platforms and post your comment there. Of course, we'll get you the chance to be part at the tail end when we open the phone lines. You're watching us on TV3. You're listening to us on 92.73 FM. We're streaming live on TV3 Network. When we come back, we'll find out if the state indeed is monopolizing businesses or perhaps hijacking this. We'll find out exactly what that means.
This is what it feels like. line. This is what it feels like. This is what it feels like. This is what it feels like.
Thanks so much. You stayed there.
This is what it feels
You're
like.
watching us live on TV3. You're listening to us 92.73 FM. We're streaming live on TV3network.com. Let's continue our conversation. Turn our attention to one huge issue that came up in the course of the week. The fact that Ghanaians were asked not to simply accept roads, not to simply accept the fact that there was no enough energy, but at least we have what we can boast of now, and that we should raise our bar of expectation and not allow the state to monopolize and hijack businesses. Let me start from me, Ayuku. Is it wrong to? You said you wanted to make it. Oh God. Okay. Quickly before I move on to
just to
right.
wrap up on the
on the
earlier
EC thing.
subject.
Forgive me.
My brother Mutala raised an issue, and I just wanted to give one example of the fumbling, why I used the word fumbling, and so that the viewers and listeners will know that I just didn't say that. You remember this issue about some 200,000, well, and later she had to come and correct it. You understand? Straight away, you've sent out some impression that you may not even be up to date with your figures. That is why I use the word fumbling. So that, look, we have done this radio, whatever things for so many years. This is my 9th year, I should say. But we still make mistakes. You understand? When the microphone is sitting right in front of you and you have a presenter who wants to grill you, they can turn the questions round and round. And if you don't take care, what you don't want to say, you say it. What you are not prepared, or whatever research you haven't done, you will end up saying things about it that may not be accurate. So there's some, as much as possible, as a leader, it's good to speak, it's good to communicate and all of that. But make sure you're on top of your facts. Don't also dilute your availability to speak on every issue. You understand? Let other people do that. You should be the last to deliver. And when you deliver,
and close
the chapter. You understand? Don't speak, and then other people rather will come and
Clean the mess.
Yes, that's the kind of thing I'm trying to tell her not to do.
All right. So I said, I'm grateful. Pardon me for trying to swerve you. So let's start from here. Is it wrong, Dr. Mensah, I'm asking that we should raise our bar of expectation? We should not accept tarred road. We should not accept water. We should not accept electricity, but we should demand more.
You see, there is a problem with reportage by many of the media houses. I have had occasion anytime they brought their cameras and things to my office to interview me, to ask them, do you put these things in context? You are the interviewer, you are the person putting the questions. You put a particular question, I answered. Then you go back and say, former Attorney General calls for. Do you understand? Without putting it within the context that I spoke. Was he not launching a book?
He was.
Whether you dare dream, can you dream of doing something for yourself? Should you always, rely on government for government to do things for you? Within that context, could you say that he has just made a statement calling for people not to be, happy with the minimals? I read a full statement in the graphic, I think, yesterday. I said, where are we coming from? What is this? Mensa Otabil has called for this, and now he has even become a security threat. When the man was just trying to, as it were, motivate others that you can do it. You don't need to wait for government. You don't need to. If schools are being run properly by individuals, do you need government money and cash? If hospitals are being run properly, would you need this? I think within that context, the condemnation is just too much because we did not place it within the context he spoke. We created the impression that, MPP have been saying for some time now that government claims that they are transforming lives. They building schools, they are tarring roads, which we are seeing in Accra for the first time. Bitumen is being put in almost all the roads in the Bukom and other places, So when Mensa Otabil speaks, then it's like agreeing with what the MPP have been saying, that is it not the job of government to do that? But put it in proper context, you'll find that even the NDC did the same thing to the MPP. When we're doing so much infrastructure development, say, is this streets that we are going to eat? We are not going to eat streets. The people say they are suffering, put money in their pockets and stop wasting our time with you are building roads and doing streets and doing that. So like you keep on touting that, look, you are suffering, yes, but don't you see the things we are doing for you? And then we hit back and ask you, is that what we are going to eat? Are these roads, are these schools, or whatever that you claim you are doing, regardless of the suffering of Ghanaians? So the people say they are suffering. Put money in their pocket and stop wasting our time. So somebody looks at that and says, Mensa Otabil, this man, into brackets, is a devil. You see, he's agreeing with, with the LPP and becoming a security threat to us. Because when he says things, people listen to him. I don't think that we have been fair to him, having myself analyzed the context in which he spoke, that it was rather motivating Ghanaians that, look, you could do everything without necessarily relying on government. You don't need to. And anything government does, that is government business. Any government builds roads, any government builds schools. When the last time I was there, I made mention of it. They've spoken about hospitals. Have they spoken about 37? When we did all the expansion, brought in Gerhard Schreider also to commission and all that. Have they spoken about it? No, because that had already been done. If we have the Tetequashi interchange, which is already there, is it necessary to talk about it again? But somebody did that interchange, isn't it? And those schools that we decided to enhance, to bring out to Dogono Secondaries, West Africa and the rest, we did those work. It is true that they were done and put at par with other good schools, said that in terms of capacity, you can take more people to Dogono Secondary School than you can do, for example, Ebenezer, because it's still small. But in terms of size and expansion in our government, we were able to do that. So if you are also building schools, so what? And the people claim they are suffering. I'm telling you, I just came from Spintex Road. We're supposed to have a desalination plant. The sea is there plenty just to take away the salt and give us water. And we woke up since yesterday, we had no water. And look at what is happening all over. The reportage we are having about water problems. Some are saying that without electricity, you cannot generate the water. So sometimes it's not that the water is not there, but merely because there's no power to do the generation. Yet, what is the end result? The people are suffering. So what is happening to your energy problem? Have you solved it? You claim you have, but look at what is happening all over, the water problems and people shouting that they just cannot find it. As for in Sawam, it's a different ball game. I remember when we were studying governance, said that a president sometimes needs a large dose of good luck to also make it sometimes. No, why are the streams dry? They may find an excuse for it, but it didn't dry in some people's governments. It is dry in your time.
It's the Hamatan season, so the streams.
But it is dry in your time, and it is you who will be held responsible. Dr. Buzier's time, He said, the guy people said they couldn't get fish. You know what he said? I will booze, I will show because you want to lose. As if he was the one who was making the fish to run away. So you seem to have a large dose of, some kind of unluck on the part. I mean, this accident that we'll be talking about, why? So many lives, one accident and so many lives being lost within somebody's reign, and we have a few months to election.
Let me, before I go to the other panelists, when Dr. Otabil talks about we should not accept roads, we know the private sector cannot go into constructing roads. Well, he talks about the fact that the energy situation has improved, but we should not just accept it. Perhaps he himself politicizes the whole debate.
I don't think so.
Apart from what you were saying, that we should look at the context in which
yes, I don't think so. You see, this issue of build, operate, and transfer, BOT, has been on the board for a very long time. Now look, there are some roads that you can do that easily. Get some people to build it, operate it, get your money, and transfer it back to government. Is it not possible?
When 4 years in the dark, the private sector didn't play such a huge role.
Did they bring them in? We kept hearing about.
But the environment is there. They were supposed to come in, but they didn't.
But you must tout them. In any case, they kept on telling us that they are looking at the private and the public sector collaboration. What happened to that? Somebody must be leading that, isn't it? If you put something in the papers, advertise that you've got like this expression of interest that appears in the papers, put it there. That the government wants to get some, private individuals to assist them solve this energy, and see whether people will not come. So, I mean, to that extent, I think that we've made too much, just because whatever is said appears to, coincide with the things that the MPP have been saying of late. That is why, to me, is our friends on the other side. I mean, how do you even describe them as a security threat?
But some of us would argue that some have argued that the state cannot simply get out of schools, get out of hospitals. It is the mandate of the state to provide this. And so, if Dr. Otabil talks about the state getting out, state monopolizing businesses, the argument is that it's a free economy. Private enterprises are thriving. So why talk about the state monopolizing?
Well,
he has a university that he built,
and
so he's functioning as a private entrepreneur.
But that is
so why would you say the state is monopolizing?
That is an example that is given out there. If I can build my own university and run it, do I really need the state to do that? So we are always complaining. I mean, look at the accident and the aftermath and the Kintampo hospital. What happened there? Where were the ambulances? Oxygen, ordinary oxygen. They couldn't find one. People died because the place had not been properly run. It's not being properly run. And it's asking you, assuming it was an individual running it, you will not wait for budgets. If you've been in government before, you know. People come and ask you for things, and you ask, why is the budgetary line for it? Do I have it? I don't have the money to do what you're asking, so I can't do it. It's as simple as that. But if you are a private individual, you know where to get the money. I remember my colleagues who are lawyers here know the Ghana bar reports was started, by the Council for Law Report does the Ghana Law Reports. Yeah. Ghana Bar Reports was started by the Bar Association, and then Pimpombuta started the Supreme Court Ghana Law Reports. Yet, almost every time, the Ghana Law Reports were being published in arrears. When we are in 2013, 2016, they'll be talking about 208, 209, yes. So, as Attorney General, I had the opportunity to reconstitute that board, and I told them, look at what Pimpombuta is doing. He is publishing and he's selling it at a price that, he can break even and continue to do the business. 2 million, 3 million for a copy, and you stay there, you are selling 40 CDs and 50 CDs, and you are unable to do it. Go to the market, go look for money, publish the thing, and sell it at what price you want to sell it. People will buy because we need the information. You understand? I don't think it's different from what Mensa Utabili is saying. You dare dream big, that there are things you can do. Don't always rely on government to do things for you. To that extent, and are you saying that the American system has collapsed because they are not into everything? What about it? Those private individuals, plenty free economy where everybody is doing his own thing. Why? Government controls just a little bit. That's why I was saying that we should look at the percentage of what government controls. And it's the same as America. Of course, it's not different from if you go to the Chinese system where they are now using the state intervention and using the state corporations, and they are still getting results. So that's a mixed economy. They still do that one, and the private people also can do their thing. So look at that which is best for you in the circumstances. You are a developing country, learn from each country, each developed country, and then find a way of moving on with your life instead of always saying government. I mean, recently, look at Kolibu, what has happened there. Shutting down, theaters. And why? You think the people there are happy? It's because there's no cash, isn't it? If the ministry has the budgetary line for that, you think it will sit on it for what? That is why the budget was made, and that money is meant to buy a particular thing. They don't have the cash. If it were a private-public partnership, somebody might bring in something. So let's look at the context within which he spoke and stop all this. He has called for. Somebody has called for. Somebody has called for that. That is not what he's calling for. He spoke within a context.
I'm grateful, Nia Ikutu, for your submission. Let me go to Ibrahim. And so he's not talking politics.
I think it's instructive to note that even accidents that are caused under President Mohammed's administration could be attributed to
I've told you, bad luck.
I think
This is bad luck.
and for such a statement to be coming from the former Minister for Justice and Attorney General, I think it's extremely instructive.
You are doing politics.
You
want to do
I'm
politics.
just making reference to the statement you made. Because I was flabbergasted, honestly, when you made that statement. And I say this because we had stadium disaster. It would be absolutely the height of immorality for me to attribute that to.
They did.
To that.
They
No,
did.
I'm saying that it will be absolutely.
By your people did.
I expect such statements to be made by senior callers, honestly, not a former attorney.
No, I am making.
Can I
no,
finish?
please.
I
Don't-
listen to you.
I am,
Let me
please,
finish, please.
don't do that.
You are
I am
telling me
saying.
they did.
All right.
I am saying that perceptions are such that sometimes we may have this difficulty, and that in our training we were even told that if sometimes you are not lucky and bad luck follows you, it would affect you, including
okay.
Buzia. I mentioned Buzia.
No, I'm just
Buzia
saying
is it not from the NPP?
listen,
let's assume Ibrahim
That they
has
said they
understood
should
what
put
you
it.
said. All right.
They should put it into the sea.
I haven't, in fact, we have even the water.
Even more.
I'll tell you the reason.
All right, go ahead.
We all have thoughts within us. Someone can be thinking that maybe this person will die. These are thoughts that are limited to you. But for you to bring those thoughts out, and people are watching, people are listening, it's extremely dangerous. I say that it will be the height of immorality for me to attribute any bad thing that happened under the MPP's administration, natural disasters to the MPP or President Kufuor. And equally, it is the height of immorality for me to assume that this could be your luck. I think that we need to move away from that. I'm saying this in the light of the fact that Dr. Mensa Otabil is not just an ordinary citizen. He is not. Just yesterday, the Pope made a statement about building of walls. And he didn't mention name, but everybody said he was making a reference to Donald Trump. I listened to some leadership, Christian leadership globally, and they said he ought not have made those statements. They said that, even though he didn't mention Donald Trump. And the Pope was expressing his opinion about it. He said, those who make such statements are not Christians. And people took the Pope to cleaners. If you listen to BBC yesterday, Why should the Pope wade into that? Dr. Mensah Otabil has been extremely consistent in agreeing with the NPP. That is interesting. Extremely consistent. This same person said that it takes wisdom. That lack of wisdom is creating doomsday. He made that statement. Now doomsday has been solved. Then you come back and says no. It's not that just. It is the height of naivety for anybody to think that building schools, constructing roads, are not panacea to solving economic and social challenges. Absolutely unacceptable. If you go to KNUST at the planning department, they will tell you the consequences of building roads, creating roads, building them, the impact it has on socioeconomic lives of people. Now, if you say that doomsday is because we don't have wisdom, leadership who don't have wisdom, as a pastor, when that doomsday is solved, when we are seeing some respite, you need to commend it. He's been very consistent. And no one can tell me he's not political. Absolutely political. There is nothing wrong with a pastor or any religious leader challenging political leadership to do what is right. There is nothing wrong with that. And I have never publicly made any comments about Dr. Mensah Otabil and whatever he says. He is a person who leads huge, if not millions of people. He can have his political persuasions. Every pastor has a political party he or she belongs to. But you see, you have in your congregation people who belong to all political parties. You should be the last person who should wade into such things. And I think that probably we may take examples from other good pastors and religious leaders and reduce our egos in wanting to wade into political debates. If you go to any Friday, just like every Sunday, when you mount the pulpit, the sermons of Muslims, Christians, and other religious groups, you are expected to point out the ills in society. You are expected to challenge authorities. You are expected to tell them you need to do. You are expected to encourage people to be hardworking. Now, if you are telling me that you run a university, what class of people can attend that university? How much do they pay a semester? There are people who can afford to pay fees at the university you run. There are people who can afford to pay fees in the private secondary schools. Those people can only attend schools that are created by the state. And let us not make this mistake comparing so-called free market societies with countries that indeed disposable income is nothing to write home about, with countries where huge sources of your revenue from taxation is not from direct taxes, but indirect taxes. Because you still live in a country where you have 3 regions, in fact 4 regions. One region has an annual income individual less than 90 Ghana cedis. 90% of the people earn less than 90 Ghana cedis a year. Another region, less than 80% of them earn less than 90 Ghana cedis a year. Another region, 70% of them earn less than 90 Ghana cedis a year. And another region, 60% of them earn less than 90 Ghana cedis a year. For you to tell me that no, the private sector can do this, those people cannot even afford to get uniform. I am telling you, there are parents in this country, not even anywhere in Accra, particularly suburbs and certain communities, that if you give the woman school uniform, free uniform, this material, she or the husband cannot afford to pay. Now, it is the responsibility of the state to come in.
So that's why he said we should not just take the road, but we should demand more.
No, there is nothing wrong with asking that you demand more. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But when you say that the state is monopolizing, as far as many developing countries are concerned, the state has the responsibility to provide education, make it accessible to people. The state has the responsibility to provide health care. The state has the responsibility, indeed, to build roads. Now, if you tell me that, yes, state, you build those things, we commend you for doing that, but we expect you to do more. That is how a religious leader must preach. You are doing this.
You're not teaching how to preach.
No, I'm saying that is how. In fact, that is what the Bible says.
encourage people to do right, but also insist they do more. I did Bible knowledge 1 whole year as free elective. And I am a beneficiary of a mission school. And I've said it. I don't have the capacity to question any pastor or any religious leader. But I have a capacity to analyze what any religious leader says. I have the capacity to analyze, and I'm saying that in as much as you agree with, but the agreement is extremely consistent. Now, if you say that it is lack of wisdom, that is why we have doomsaw publicly on a pulpit. Now, there is some respite. Please suppress your ego and say, look, you've done well, but we think you need to do more. And I think that, frankly, a religious leader must not make statements that exposes you. It's unfair. If anybody attacks the person of Dr. Mensah, that is unfair. Well, and I am surprised.
You've done that here.
What did I do?
You spent your time back here.
What did I say?
It's your right, anyway.
No, what did I say? Is it the question of interrogating what he says? That is an attack? I haven't.
How you should preach.
And I'm making this statement. I'm saying that every religious leader, and that is why I made a reference to the statement made yesterday by the Pope.
You say you should bring down his ego. You're attacking him.
I'm not saying he. I said every religious leader should support. Please. You can't put West. You can't put West. I said every religious leader. Please. If I said he, then I sincerely apologize.
Okay.
But I'm saying that every religious leader, you must suppress your egos and your feelings if you are preaching and you have a political party, and that is the context I was making it. I support political party A or B, but I am dealing with people who belong to all the political parties. I need to suppress my egos and my feelings. Don't express it. And that is why I said that all of us, you sit down, you think of something. But if you are communicating to people, you are communicating to all shades of people. And more so, he's a very respectful person. There is no question. I listen to him. Because you listen to him and you get some motivations and some wisdoms. But you see, it becomes extremely dangerous when you are consistent. There is nothing wrong with being consistent in pointing out the ills in society. But where I say that is lack of wisdom, the entire leadership is lack of wisdom that leads to this. And there is some solution. Please, just says that, look, this thing, I commend this for doing ABC, but we demand more. Then people will begin to say
too much to say that he's a security threat?
Who said that? And that is why I'm saying I am surprised. This is the first time.
Right. This is everywhere.
Hold on. I'm saying that this is the hold on.
Communication
Maybe
director.
you as a deputy,
Is that
get your chance,
please? Is that like when you said you didn't hear your party?
So you are going
No. So my point is that if anybody says that is not that is not appropriate, that is unfair, please. I'm saying that if anybody says that is not appropriate, that is not fair. In as much as he has the right to express his opinion on any national issue, every single person has the right to question the motives behind such expressions. But if you want to question that, you don't need to attack him. And that is why I was surprised when he said, made reference. I said, I apologize. I don't think that I would want to question the integrity of anybody. But I have that democratic right to also interrogate what anybody says. I'm saying that if there is any religious leader in this world who has so much respect, I don't think that there can be any religious leader who is more respected than the Pope. He's reverend. Now, if he made a statement yesterday, and he didn't even mention name, he said, look, building walls, dividing states and saying building walls, that is unchristian. Yet they
the Jewish state has done.
No,
against the Palestinians.
No, I'm talking about what the pastors, what the Pope said. I don't want to wade into what the Jewish state has done or what Palestine has done.
So
I am just making reference.
Why should it only be for Donald Trump?
Oh, can I make it, please?
Why should it only be?
We are not discussing Donald Trump here.
Why you said so?
He said, I'm saying that if you listen to the commentary that was made, even BB, they said he was making a reference to Donald Trump.
Is he the only one who has said?
Oh, I am just saying what they said.
Build walls.
That's not my interest.
And the wall is already being built. Even Germany, there were walls. But he was making reference, and all the people who made comments said that he was making reference to Donald Trump. And they virtually took him to cleaners.
Who?
The Pope.
No, but Trump himself after responding to the
I'm
pope,
coming to you.
No,
to come back to apologize.
No, not Trump. I'm not talking of Trump.
has
I'm
just 2
talking
minutes to
about
wrap up.
the
I'm coming
commentary that people made
I think he
on
has made his
BBC.
point.
So the point I'm just making is that we need to be very, very careful.
Right.
So if you are telling me that, it's just that what he said seems to coincide with what the MPP says, and I'm saying that the coincidence has been so consistent.
All right.
It's been extremely consistent. So if you say it's lack of wisdom that has resulted to ABC,
Ibrahim, you are repeating
and there's
the
a
same
solution, please just also commend
Now
government
the
for doing
wisdom
it.
has come.
All right. Okay.
You're talking about roads.
He's a member of parliament for now, so I'm grateful for your cooperation there.
Right,
I'm grateful.
Right.
Let me go to Obiamo.
right. Thank you so much. I admire Dr. Mensah Otabil.
Yeah.
That's the caveat.
But he
We
also
all
said he
admire him.
I admire him.
In
One,
fact, I reverend him.
I see.
the way he conducts himself, the way he preaches.
Fantastic.
I can listen to him for hours, I will not be bored. Two, the way he dresses. Every time I see him at a major function, he's in African wear. Very well sewn. He brings out the African personality. And I really admire the way he conducts himself. I am one person, I wouldn't say it's only me. There are a lot of religious leaders I will not spend a minute listening to, because I will not learn anything from them.
I'm not sure you want to mention names.
I will not mention names, but I will not learn
Because
anything from
I'm sure
some leaders. But
I don't want us to go
there are others at any moment. If I have to
Before we
to
turn
a
into
station.
something else.
Now, the Pastor Otabil even brought in a caveat that I'm not referring to any particular government. He brought in that caveat.
And he
We
said
should-
he's not even asking
we should
that
go and
we
read
should-
that
we should
statement
give it
very
to
well.
one party or the other.
Yes,
He said he
he's-
didn't say
yes.
that.
And I think that he's challenging the political class. We run the state. The state has all the resources. Are we applying the resources very well? That is his beef. And doesn't have to be any particular government. We, the political class, sometimes we think that we know everything. We think that people don't have a right to even criticize us. But we have gone to the people for their mandate. They've given us their mandate to run the country. If we are not running the country well, the people have every right to complain. And the fact that he's a pastor doesn't mean he's not a citizen of this country, or he doesn't pay tax, or he doesn't employ people. He has every right to complain. And his complaint is not about a particular government. His complaint is about how we run things in this country. We are in this country where even at the Attorney General's department, they will threaten to go on strike because they don't have A4 sheets to do photocopy. And you think that every person is happy about the way we are running this country. And indeed, if he says that it's lack of wisdom that has led us into doom so, and you think that now doom so has been solved, so he should come and apologize. How many lives?
He said you just comment.
Comment what? How many lives have been lost out of doom so?
Nobody says he should
How
apologize.
many people have lost their jobs out of doom so?
Nobody says
Can
he
we
should
bring
apologize.
those
You
things
get that
back?
very clearly.
Can we bring those things back?
I see.
I think Mensah Otabil is right on point. There's this major debate about the state versus private sector. The whole world, we keep going around it. One government will come, they think that the state should take leadership in providing resources for the country. Another government will think that the private sector should have a major role. You have golden age of business. We think that is a time for the private sector to also have a lead. Sometimes too, you have PPP. But the major issue is that whether we like it or not, in a country like Ghana, the state has all the resources. Go to Public Procurement Authority. Look at their annual report. The government is the biggest spender. When it comes to procurement, it's government at the forefront. It gets to a point where the average private person thinks that the environment is not even good for him to thrive. And these are the things that we should all agree and look at. It should not be like, because he, in any case, even if you say that he's created any controversy, I've never found him to have created any controversy. When this issue about free education came, he had made a statement long ago before it became an issue, and then people went to bring it back and said that he was condemning free education. So those who are clamoring for free education, even Otago has condemned it. When he had not even made any statement during that period. But people brought it in just to malign him. And I'm saying that Ghana needs people like this. He has so much respect, and if he makes statement, you don't read through it well. And then you draw your own conclusions and even come to the point of saying it's a security risk.
Oh, yes.
Then you yourself, we are really cleaning you yourself. Because at the end of the day, is it true that the government can do more? Any government can do more, given the resources that you have. Is it true that when it comes to state enterprises, a lot of them are not delivering?
But our roads not the
Is
country
it true?
to economic development. That is the
every
argument
time I
that
see
people
President Mahama, especially on TV, I want to see whether his hands are in his pocket.
Why?
Because when he was running mate for Samos and he was campaigning, at every point he would say that put your hands in your pocket. Bring your hands, and what do you bring? Nothing. We don't have cash in our pockets. Now I want to see whether there's cash in our pockets.
Where did he say?
You don't know this.
So
You
tell
don't
me.
know that.
I'm
This,
asking
that
you.
what
You were in
Oh, well,
the
let's
you
move
were
on.
there.
Let's
You
move
know
on.
what?
for Dr. Menson Tado, he's brought a major issue. As you heard, he was launching a book and he was talking about how individuals have striven to get to a certain point, how we should all aspire to, and how we should even question the state in allocation of resources. And these are critical things. And we should not be, of course, I should not be content if you can build 5-kilometer road for my constituency, you come and build 1 kilometer and you say that I should praise you, given the resources at your disposal. And he has every right to make some of these comments. If we are not careful and we start, because sometimes what you read about what he has said, you wonder whether people really understood what he was saying, or even read what he was saying, or they were just depending on hearsay to lambast him. And it's not fair. Do you want to gag everybody in this country? Look, I have met older people. And sometimes when they complain, I tell them that but you are very respectable in society. You can also make a point. Say, hey, do you want me to go and say this, and then they will insult me and they will attack me? We should be careful we don't create this kind of atmosphere. It will not help anybody. It will help. There are people with experience, with knowledge, with everything. They are sitting back because they don't know how they'll be attacked if they make genuine statements.
Dr.
about
Otabele is
the
a
running of
citizen,
this
but
country.
he also plays another key role as a religious leader.
Yes.
Okay,
That is
these
why.
leaders are supposed
That
to
is why I'm
bring
saying that the
people
moment
together.
he brought in that caveat,
So we should not see him to be
Dr.
fronting for.
Dr. Menzabe has not fronted
I have
for
not
any
said
group.
that. I'm saying that religious leaders are supposed to be that uniting factor.
Yes.
But when the perception, you have spoken about perception.
Which
What the
perception?
perception is that
earlier
he
you spoke
said
about
that
perception.
consistently
He's been agreeing with
he's been agreeing with the NPP.
He
So
hasn't.
when that perception
When
is
he talked about
created,
the
has-
wisdom
then there are
thing, the energy
challenges
wisdom thing, did
with
he
it.
bring
He
KV?
The
hasn't. He
phrase who
hasn't.
did he agree with MPP?
Dr.
saying the energy wisdom that
Menzabe
he
has
brings
not
is-
said anything to create the impression that he's agreeing with MPP. He is commenting on what is happening in the country, and he has every right as a citizen to comment. He runs a church. He knows those who belong to his church come from different backgrounds.
Right.
That is why when we listen to him, he is very cautious in even articulating. And in this case, because he knew very well in advance that people will read into what he's saying, and people will even misconstrue what he's saying, he brought in that caveat that I'm not referring to any particular government. Let your governments be accountable.
When he
Let your leaders be accountable.
The wisdom-
Let those who go to parliament and say that they are going to parliament on your behalf, let them be accountable.
the energy
What else
thing,
does he have to say?
Did he give a caveat?
Please, I don't want you for it to be a give and take here.
But you did that to me. I'm asking you, did
All
you
right.
give
I don't want
caveat
to-
when you talk about the energy?
Don't
thing?
do
Does he have
it.
to-
I'll get to
Does he
that.
have to give
But
a
why are you
caveat?
making reference to
He doesn't
caveat?
have to give a caveat.
Obi, please go ahead.
If during your time you promise every year State of the Nation address in your budget that by this time I would have solved this problem, and you don't solve it, And even if he makes that statement, does he have to give a caveat?
So, Obi,
when
so
had a
you
lot
don't
of
agree
sense,
that if he is spoken about a problem and it's being solved, it is only good that he comes out.
Which problem has been solved?
comment.
The Dumso.
I'm
Was
talking
he
about
talking about
the
Dumso?
energy
Yes.
challenge.
Was he talking about doing so there?
In the first place,
Oh, okay. You want to
in the
talk
first
Was he
place,
talking about doing so?
in the first place, I don't know when he made that statement,
Right.
and in what context.
Right.
But I'm saying that even in the matter of Dumso, I can tell you we have lost so much that when we even address the problem, we don't have to be blowing the trumpet that what we lost. Have you recovered?
Oh, but at least we wouldn't
That's
lose
what I'm
more.
saying. I don't even know.
businesses that have collapsed and
please
all that.
control him.
Okay,
he will
Obi,
not-
go ahead.
Otherwise, you
Go
don't speak
stand
on this set
up.
again.
No,
Tell him.
please. I don't want to gag you, so please don't.
Control him.
He did.
What
please
I'm
go ahead.
saying is that sometimes when I'll give you an example. KB Asante. KB Asante belongs to the socialist group. KB Asante has his own ideas about the state, how the state should run and everything.
This is not what he was addressing.
Anytime I see his writing, I want to read it. Even though I may not share so many of the things that he will say because of where he's coming from. He is of the left, I'm right of center. So we may not share all the ideas, but I always take the trouble to read KB Asante because of his experience, because of the wisdom that he brings out, because of his knowledge and everything. It's not every time that I will agree with him, but we should be able to learn from such people. We should be able to learn from such people. And if anybody wants to attack Dr. Mensah Otabil for this particular thing, I don't think there's any basis at all for anybody to attack him. We should rather, political class, we should rather admit that we can do far better than what we are doing in running the country. We should do far better. So if at any point somebody has the opportunity to say that, let's encourage people to do individual things, let's encourage even the private sector, and start comparing with what the state is doing, giving the resources at its disposal. The person has every right to advise us and caution us and bring out some of these issues. And at any time, any day, there will be this debate about whether the state, even the state-owned enterprises, we are running them well. We were in this country when we had to start carrying out divestiture. We sold all our state properties. At the end of the day, we are saying that, have we regretted? Because the consequences included high unemployment. The consequences included high unemployment in the sense that the state was employing so much, even if the state was over-employing. But people were having jobs. At the end of the day, how efficient was the system? That's how come you find a company like Ghana Telecom being offloaded to Vodafone, and then trying to compare when it was purely state-owned, and now that it is partly state-owned, how is the efficiency level and everything?
Wrap up for me,
At
let me
any
go to
time,
Mr.
any day, some of these debates will come out. But don't let us personalize it and then start reading into things and saying that he's been too consistent in everything that he says. But I don't think
Obi, I'm
it's not
grateful.
helpful.
Obi, I'm grateful.
I don't think it's not helpful.
I know you are.
It's not helpful.
I'm grateful.
It's not helpful at all.
I'm grateful. I think Mr. Idrissa will have a huge challenge. He's a member of the International Central Gospel Church.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, as you rightly said, I've been a member of ICGC since 1989. And
They want to gag you, but don't
no,
listen.
don't worry. Don't worry. We'll have a nice conversation. And I have sat under the able leadership of Dr. Mensah Otabil. I've learned a whole lot, and the fact that I'm sitting here, once I give God his part, I can say I owe a whole lot to his guidance and tutelage. And I still continue to be a loyal member of his flock. But let's put things within their context. You ask yourself, where was Dr. Otabil speaking from? Was it in church, on the pulpit? Was it what other platform was it? In this case, it was a book launch. And he was addressing a certain caliber of people. So, certainly, in as much as I wouldn't want to go and pick a message from the pulpit and do politics with it, because usually in the pulpit they use scriptures and others to support whatever statements they make. But here we are, it was more of an academic discussion. So of course it calls for some kind of debate. People have the right to dissect what he said, see whether they are well placed in terms of whatever subject that is being discussed. So that is where I will agree that yes, we can discuss this particular statement and dissect it and see how to place or where to place the issues. I think I agree with him to some extent, but I also disagree on certain points, because I don't agree with the part that the state, or let's say private sector, should run everything. I don't agree, because I think that once the state takes taxes from the citizenry, it has an obligation to also provide some social amenities, and the state has some responsibility towards its people. And the least you can give your people is health and education. So the two subjects can be debated at but the appropriate forum if need be. So I think they should go hand in hand. That is my personal position. That yes, government has this role, private sector has this role. Because in this current country as we have it currently, we have educational institutions, private sector, we have educational institutions, public. And I can tell you, take the categories. Which secondary school would you send your child? Is it a private secondary school or a public secondary school? Come down to JHS. We all come from primary school, JHS. We take our children to the private schools because we want to give them solid foundation. But then we get to the SHS, and then we quickly move them from the private whatever and put them to the...
But that one is even changing. It's even changing.
You see, because we think that there's some quality at the public secondary school level. So all of us who pay so much money for our kids at primary level and JHS level quickly want to move our kids to the public sector. Then when it gets to the tertiary also, we all try the public universities first before we move. If we don't get the opportunity, then we look for opportunities at the private universities for the kids. So this is a very debatable issue, taking up issues into consideration. Go to the health sector. If you took somebody to the hospital, private hospital, and there's complication, where do they send the person? They will quickly call an ambulance and rush that person to Kwalebu or 37 or police hospital.
Because they have resources.
Because what?
They have resources.
Wonderful. So where is the private sector?
Including the technical.
Where is the private sector in this case?
The private sector is young. The private sector
So
is young.
I'm saying
The
that
state.
I'm saying that
Yeah.
this is a debatable issue. So to that extent, we can all do some academic exercise with that subject and deal with it.
Without seeing him as a security threat.
Oh, of course, that I dissociate myself with
But
that
this
statement.
is an
That is-
individual statement.
Exactly, and we
It's
don't have. I don't
It's-
think that is the
it's a
position.
national officer.
No, it doesn't mean it's the position of the party on the matter. He is also an individual. He has his views on issues. I don't think the party has issued any statement to that effect. I think every member of ICGC belongs to a political party, including Dr. Otabel himself. And
You know which party he belongs to?
I don't know. He hasn't told me.
But he votes.
He hasn't told me because you see,
Perception.
because no, I disagree a bit because only last week, before this controversy, I listened to a tape from his sermons, and it was saying something rather opposite what we are hearing from. That's why I don't think the NDC's posture should be one of.
No, I don't think.
When I say NDC,
Your deputy general secretary also said
wonderful. Okay, let me leave it there.
Your
I
deputy
agree.
general secretary.
You need to stop it.
It's not only
You need to
it's
stop
not
it.
only your
You are
administrator.
interjecting.
Your deputy general secretary also has been taking him on every day.
You are
You're not on the
interjecting.
floor yet.
You are
You're not
interjecting.
on
You
the
see,
floor
the
yet.
poster should
You're
not
allowed to address
be
that.
made to look
Anti-Otabo.
like exactly for me. Because that is
Anti-Otabo,
not, I
anti-Otabo.
know countless number of NDC people in ICGs.
There are some MPP who have
To be honest with you,
the
you
kind
know
of
what
statements.
that statement said? That if there's this, I mean, like anybody who has this hardline position, and whenever everybody wants to go a certain direction, he only wants to go to a particular way, and
He's asking for moderation.
To the extent that he used the word, that all die be die spirit.
Yes.
Do you understand?
Which spirit?
And all die be die spirit.
okay.
That person is bad company.
Hey.
This was his statement. Only last week I listened to this. So
Which
I can only balance.
Which week's sermon was that?
Sorry?
Which week's
You're
sermon?
As I heard it last
And
week.
he said all what?
You interjected again.
You heard me.
I love
This is what
No, I
he
didn't hear
said.
properly.
So, and I can only balance because I'm sure when he said this, some people could associate that statement
Like what he's trying to do now.
with somebody.
He's asking for it so that you go and take it out of context. And go and use it. Yes, because that phrase, all that has become a popular phrase.
No, it's not. It's a dangerous
And you
phrase.
say that
It's
all
a
that
very,
is that
very
phrase
dangerous phrase.
cannot be helpful
It's
every
not a
time.
fanciful. It's not a
Yes.
fanciful phrase.
Every right to say it.
You understand?
Okay.
When he said so, and I heard it, we found the person that could be that particular phrase could be hanged on, and we were happy to be hearing that. So if one week after something like this comes up, and it is the
descend on him.
opposite, for me, I think the person rather seems to be an objective person. He can hit here and hit here, and still
So
play
be
his
bold,
role.
be bold and
So
tell your
instead
people
of-
that they should stop attacking us.
Well, for me, instead of
attacking him.
taking him on as
yes.
an individual and blasting him
Listen.
here and there, I think there's some wisdom in what he said. Yes, like you rightly said, roads, electricity, whatever, they play a role. It's part of the components to determine how livelihoods are improving in any nation. So that is also an issue that can be debated. You understand? If they are components, it makes, because if we had a single lane in a particular area, and after a while it is converted, maybe after they realize that that particular road become congested at peak times and all of that, people don't get to work early, they don't return home early, they get home tired, and the next day they are late for work and all of that. The state will have to come in and put resources in there, probably widen the road and give more access to vehicles for people to get to work in time. It's all part of the process to improve livelihoods in a country. So as I said, whatever he said, we can take him on in terms of the debatable issues. But to attack him personally and start dealing with him, he is this, he is that, for me, I think that is where I would like to advise, because for me, such a person, like Mutala said, we listen to him every day.
I do.
And we like what he says.
He listens to him to be able to criticize him. Not to learn.
I have never criticized.
He didn't say that.
If you have any evidence,
say,
I have never
okay.
Just like what
If
you
you want
done.
to go
Yes, we need to
some of the
scrutinize what he
issues
says.
our former Attorney General raised in terms of Kolibu, the Minister of Health, the very day this Kolibu issue came up, went there to ascertain what the issues are. You see, again, that is where there's some contradiction in this whole thing, Chief, Kolebu should be able to, we should be able to manage Kolebu. Like, can be autonomous, if I should put it that way. Why are we not being able to do? And some of the people here, the consultants and others, they are private people.
We'll deal with that in our third issue, because we're
they are private people. So you cannot say that the state is on its own and private people are not being allowed to. Look, most of the boards we have in this country, who are the people who are composed on these boards?
Politicians.
Politicians plus private people.
Politicians.
So what
they
is
hold more power than the private people.
Please, I don't agree.
Right.
So I think that these are
Please